This is Katrin with Disability Rights New York. Welcome to our podcast, Empire State of Rights, closed captioned. We are here to bring you information on the most relevant topics regarding disability rights and advocacy. Today, we welcome Noah Schuettge, voter engagement and voter rights organizer for New York Civil Liberties Union, or the NYCLU, to discuss the importance of voting and its relationship to the NCLU's mission and advocacy work. Noah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start by just talking a little bit about your organization. Some people may be familiar, but let's let our audience know who you're representing today.
Yeah, of course. I'm here, as you said, as an organizer with NYCLU, New York Civil Liberties Union, otherwise known as New York affiliate of the ACLU. And we're really here to defend and have been here historically since the 40s as an organization primarily focused on defending and protecting the rights of all New Yorkers.
And so let's talk about voting specifically. How is it that voting is going to impact the work that you do at NYCLU? We know it impacts us on our daily lives in a lot of different ways, but let's talk specifically about how voting really is going to impact the work you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for us, there's the voting and what it means, and mobilizing people to vote is for a few different reasons. First and foremost, we're here to defend and protect and to expand the right to vote in New York. And so we've done this in a few different ways. We've done this through advocacy, we've done this through litigation, and I'm primarily here to focus on our outreach to voters, getting more people voting. One of the ways to protect and expand against voter suppression is to make the pathways to voting as accessible and as easy as possible for as many New Yorkers as we can. We have a big base of New Yorkers who care about our values around civil liberties and racial justice, and we want to make sure that our base is voting and that their communities are voting and have all the necessary information to vote in New York. And, in 2018, New York adopted early voting, which was a big step for expanding the right to vote in the state. But as the state is currently set up, we are not set up as a state to expand the right to vote. It's unnecessarily complicated as a process in many ways. And we're really fighting through litigation and advocacy to make the pathways more accessible. And my role specifically is to expand that outreach.
As you're representing the New York chapter of the ACLU, some of our audience may not know what community you serve. Is it a small group of people? Is it a large group of people? Is it me, someone who lives in New York? Let's talk about the community, and let's talk about how voting is going to impact that community.
So we have a huge community that we serve. We are serving all of New Yorkers. And we do that, like I said, in a variety of ways through lots of different processes. So it's a huge community that we're actually reaching out to. But we know that civil liberties impact different people in different communities in different ways and in inequitable ways. We know that cuts along the lines of race, socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, and disability status, right, as you all know. And so that we know that how civil liberties are applied is inequitable. And so, for the past 10 years, the ACLU has really recognized that especially racial equity is super important, and we need to be fighting for that. If we're talking about civil liberties, we also need to be talking about racial justice in that same sentence. And we know that in our state, historically, and historically in the US, the folks who have been marginalized by lots of state apparatuses have also been the ones who have had their vote taken away, had their votes suppressed, had it illegal for those folks to vote. And those are Black folks, those are Black and brown folks. And as you all know, that the access to voting looks like a lot of different things based on your race, based on your disability status. And so we're not only concerned with getting everybody to the polls, but really focusing on the communities who need that support because of how much weight is behind the state to suppress their vote currently. This is still happening. This is still a lot of focus on other states in the US, but New York definitely has an issue around voter suppression and also voter dilution. And there's experts at ACLU of New York who can speak to this a lot better than I could, but through a history of partisan politics and gerrymandering in the state, what we've ended up with is a lot of folks of color's votes are actually diluted because of the ways that the congressional districts are chopped up.
All right, Noah, so you're working in outreach, and you just talked a lot about the barriers that many people have to not just the expansion of the vote, but also to accessing the polls themselves and or whether or not they want to vote by mail. What are you doing in your outreach capacity with the NYCLU to get people to the polls or to ensure that they have the ability to vote and that those barriers are mitigated in a way that they can exercise that right?
There's huge threat right now with COVID around voter suppression and more barriers to vote. We saw what happened in June, what we just wrapped up that election this week, right? So we know that the system as it currently stands is not necessarily set up to respond to this moment and this need, but we're going to be doing our best, and the state is doing their best. So we really want, first and foremost, voters to know that they have options come November. They have options about how they vote. We have a vote by mail system. We have an absentee ballot system. There was an executive order put out for June to allow anyone to access absentee ballots. Hopefully that will be happening. We assume that will also be happening again for November so that folks can apply. Anyone can apply for absentee ballots. We're hoping that also happens for November. And that there's also early voting. Early voting is a great way, depending on who you are, to vote safely during COVID. But we don't want COVID to get in the way of people voting. We want people to be able to vote and be able to vote in a way that feels safe to them. And the two ways that really feels possible is through vote by mail and to avoid those crowds on election day and come out in early voting period. Also, we really are trying to spread as much information as we can about voting to the general public through virtual phone banking, through text banking. And as the ACLU, we have a responsibility that our base, first and foremost, is voting. And we want to make sure that our base is voting, that our base is able to access the polls right now. And so we are doing a campaign to focus on our base, make sure that they're turning out, make sure they have all the tools to vote. We're also engaging hundreds of volunteers to reach out to their communities, to reach out to thousands of New Yorkers in a relational organizing campaign. We're meeting every other week. Anyone is welcome to join us, and we are supporting them to reach out to family and friends to make sure that their communities are heard this voting season.
And so certainly if anyone had any issues with access to voting or barriers, we always say at DRNY, they certainly can give us a call. Is there information on the NYCLU site, or is there a place for people to go if they need assistance from you? If you want to give a shout out for that, we can also list it at the bottom of the podcast.
Yeah, we have a page set up on our website, nyclu.org/vote. And you can find all of the updated information. So as soon as hopefully that EO comes through around absentee ballot and universal access to absentee ballot for this election, hopefully as soon as that comes through, we'll have that page updated with all that information. You can see what's on there now, as well as if anyone sees anything during the election process, people aren't getting their absentee ballots returned in time, which was a big issue in the primary. If people are seeing anything at the polls, you can write to us at vote@nyclu.org. It's an email address, and we're taking in testimony and reports about any voter suppression happening in real time.
That's a lot of really great information, and I really appreciate your time, Noah. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to let our audience know, or any final words of encouragement?
Yeah, a lot of us know what's at stake for our communities during this election, and we know what we're up against in terms of COVID and voting. And so now is such an important time to protect, for the folks who have it, to protect that right to vote. And that voting is not a movement, voting is a moment. And we know that we need to organize and build power in our communities, turn them out to vote, and then hold the people that we vote into office accountable. And we know that we do this by building power with each other, by communicating, and that turning out to the vote is this one part of this process.
Noah, thank you so much for your time today. It was great talking to you, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks so much.
Empire State of Rights Closed Captioned has been brought to you by Disability Rights New York, your source for disability rights and advocacy. If you enjoyed our program, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this post. If there is a subject you would like us to discuss, please email podcast@drny.org or comment below. Tune in next Wednesday, where we'll bring you more information on disability rights in the state of New York. The closed captioned and ASL version of this podcast is available on our YouTube channel. To listen to more Empire State of Rights closed captioned, follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.